The morning sun spilled through the glass windows of a small diner off a lonely highway in California, bathing its faded red neon sign in a soft, golden glow. The air was thick with the scent of bacon and eggs sizzling on the griddle, while steam curled lazily from the coffee machine, drifting into the sunlight. Outside, the low rumble of motorcycle engines blended with the quiet hum of the waking world. The bikes gleamed in a neat row along the curb, chrome shining, black leather jackets reflecting the morning light. The men who rode them looked hard and unshakable, like they were built to conquer anything in their path. Yet behind each pair of mirrored sunglasses was a story of loss, struggle, and pain that no one ever asked to hear. Inside, the diner buzzed with early chatter. Smoke curled under the hanging lights. The jukebox hummed a low country tune, and the clinking of glasses mixed with bursts of laughter and muttered curses. This was the kind of place where men came to forget, where weakness stayed hidden and power was worn like armor. Behind the counter, a young waitress moved quietly, her head slightly bowed as she poured coffee and cleared tables. Her name was Sarah Miller. She was 27, slim, with chestnut hair tied in a loose ponytail. Her white shirt and jeans looked plain, but there was a calm precision in her movements, a steadiness that came from discipline, not habit. Most people barely noticed her, but beneath her quiet exterior was a history few could imagine. Sarah had once served in the United States Marine Corps. She enlisted at 18, driven by a need to escape poverty and to prove she was more than what her small hometown expected her to be. Boot camp was brutal. Each dawn brought exhaustion. Each drill carved away fear until only grit remained. She had seen friends fall in combat, faced nights so dark the silence itself seemed to scream, and learned to fight for life one breath at a time. On her chest, hidden beneath her shirt, was a deep crimson tattoo, the USMC emblem, a mark of courage, sacrifice, and everything she'd survived. When her service ended, she came home to a world that had kept moving without her. She didn't talk about what she'd seen. She just got a job, kept her head down, and worked. The war had left scars invisible to everyone else, but heavy on her heart. That night, the diner was louder than usual. The smoke hung thicker, the guitars from the jukebox growled low and steady. Then the door burst open, and a group of bikers walked in, boots thudding against the old wooden floor. Their leather jackets were covered in patches and symbols, their arms inked with stories of rebellion. Conversation stopped. Eyes turned, but the bikers didn't care. They laughed, shoved tables aside, and claimed the room like they owned it. Sarah kept her head down, clearing glasses, pretending not to notice. But trouble has a way of finding quiet people. One of the bikers, a tall man with arms like tree trunks, walked up to her with a smirk. "Hey, sweetheart," he said, voice rough as gravel. "Don't you get tired serving all these tough guys by yourself?" Sarah didn't flinch. "What can I get you to drink?" she asked calmly. The man didn't like her tone. His grin faded, replaced by something colder. The noise around them dimmed. Then, without warning, he grabbed her shirt and yanked hard, the sound of tearing fabric echoing through the room. For a split second, no one breathed. Everyone expected her to scream, to shrink away, to show fear, but she didn't. Sarah straightened her back, her gaze unshaken. Beneath the torn shirt, the deep red USMC tattoo glared under the light, bold and defiant. The eagle, globe, and anchor stood out against her skin like a silent roar. The entire diner froze. Even the jukebox seemed to go silent. That tattoo wasn't ink. It was her story, burned into her very being. Every line told of battles fought. Every shade of red of blood spilled for something greater than herself. Her calm, unflinching eyes met the bikers. "Try me," they seemed to say. The man stepped back, the color draining from his face. His friends shifted uneasily, their bravado cracking under the weight of that simple, wordless power. Sarah said nothing. She quietly buttoned her shirt, smoothed the fabric, and went back to work as if nothing had happened. But the silence that followed was heavy with respect. The regulars looked at her differently now, not as a waitress, but as someone forged in fire. Within days, the story spread through the small town. People who had never spoken to Sarah before began to greet her, to thank her for her service. Those who once overlooked her now saw her strength in every quiet smile. Sarah didn't change her routine. She didn't need to. Her quiet presence had already shifted the air around her. But healing is never easy. The nights still brought memories she couldn't escape. The sound of gunfire, the faces of those she'd lost. Sometimes she woke with her palms slick with sweat, heart pounding like she was still on the battlefield. Yet every morning, she got up, tied her hair, and went to work. The diner became her refuge, a place to channel her pain into something steady, human, ordinary. She helped wherever she could, covering shifts for younger coworkers, handing a cup of hot coffee to a weary traveler, bringing a sandwich to a homeless man outside. Her pain hadn't hardened her. It had made her gentler. The biker who tore her shirt never came back. Maybe shame kept him away. Maybe fear did. But everyone who had been there that night carried something new with them. A lesson. Respect the quiet ones. The strongest people are rarely the loudest. Months later, the diner hosted a small charity event. Sarah helped organize it, rallying coworkers and neighbors to raise money for stray animals and elderly residents who needed help. She wasn't looking for praise, but people began to see her differently, not as a survivor, but as a pillar of the community. For the first time since leaving the Marines, Sarah felt like she belonged. One spring morning, she sat on the bench outside the diner, sunlight spilling over the street. In her hands were a few postcards addressed to her old unit, messages of remembrance for those still out there. She thought about the years she'd carried her past alone, about the nights she'd chosen courage over despair, and about how small acts of kindness had become her quiet rebellion against the darkness. The little boy approached her, clutching a piece of paper and some crayons. "Ma'am," he said shyly, "is this you?" On the page, he'd drawn a waitress with a tattoo on her chest, standing tall beside a row of motorcycles. Sarah smiled and took the drawing. "Yeah," she said softly. "That's me." The boy looked at her with wide, sincere eyes. "You're really brave." She folded the picture carefully and slipped it into her jacket pocket. "Thank you," she said. "But you can be brave too." That drawing eventually hung on the wall of the diner, framed and fading slightly over time. It became part of the town's story, a symbol of quiet courage and unseen strength. Visitors would stop to look at it, some smiling, some silent, all feeling the same unspoken truth, that behind every ordinary face lies a story powerful enough to change the world. Sarah kept living her life, steady and unassuming. She didn't seek recognition or applause. She simply did what felt right, helping others, standing tall, moving forward. Years later, when the diner finally closed its doors, people still spoke her name. They remembered the waitress with the Marine tattoo, the woman who reminded them what real strength looked like. Not loud, not violent, but steady, compassionate, and unbreakable. Her story wasn't just about one night in a diner. It was about every quiet hero who walks among us. The single parents, the veterans, the laborers, the ones carrying invisible battles but still choosing kindness. And if you ever drive down that lonely California highway at sunrise, you might still see the old red diner sign, glowing faintly in the morning light. People say that's where they first learned what true courage means: quiet, steadfast, and stronger than steel.